today, we love doing movie reviews. We've done it for a lot of documentaries, but I believe this is our first movie. So Amazon hooked us up, and they're the studio behind the movie Air. And Matt and I got the pleasure of going to see a screening of the movie before it's actually released in theaters, which it is now by the time you're watching this. And we're going to give our review of the movie. And just to give you some background on the film, it stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, Marlon Wayans, Viola Davis, such an all-star cast. Jay Moore. Did you know Jay Moore is in this movie? Did you recognize him?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
shocked.
honestly, I saw him on the list of cast members, but
Yeah,
yeah, he looks different than
he
he did,
does.
back in the early 2000s and 90s.
Agreed, agreed. And just before we hop into it, there may be some spoilerish content just to warn you before we get into it.
Michael Jordan becomes a good basketball player, you guys. Ah, ah!
Right. Uh-oh. Right. So just a little bit of background on this movie. Ben Affleck is the director of this film, and the screenplay is written by Alex Convery, based on the true events of Air Jordan. Of course, everybody knows it's a basketball shoe line, which is a division of Nike. The movie profiles a Nike employee seeking to strike a business deal with Michael Jordan. And the big thing about this movie, it's of course centered about MJ. So a couple of things. One, through the movie, you don't see Michael Jordan's face at all. That's number one. And then two, through the making of this movie, I don't know if you caught wind of this, Matt, but when Ben Affleck through the press conference, he was discussing that when going to meet Michael Jordan, Matt Damon couldn't go. He had a prior commitment. Michael Jordan basically had one request that Viola Davis plays his mom. And so Ben Affleck was like, man, like, we have to get like the goat of actors, the greatest actors going at this moment to be in this movie, and she gladly accepted the role. So just a very interesting movie. I gave you the synopsis of the movie basically. So before I give my thoughts, Matt, what did you think of the movie? Your thoughts, and then we can just go back and forth.
Yeah, for sure. I think before we get into the specifics around the movie, to put my film critic hat on, one thing that I really appreciated about it was it didn't really feel like there was any waste in this movie. Like there were no
Agreed.
scenes, thinking back on it, that I would say like, we could have done without that. I mean, this movie was really tight, was under 2 hours, which I appreciate as someone who doesn't go to a lot of movies. Like keep it interesting, keep it moving. That's what this movie did. So I think even if you had no idea somehow who Michael Jordan is, even if you weren't a basketball fan, just there's a lot of great payoffs in this movie as well, like stuff that happens earlier on that is mentioned and important later on in the movie. So I think first and foremost, the thing that I'll say is it's just a really well constructed movie, as as a piece of cinema. So that's kind of my first major takeaway. How about you?
I co-sign that. That was one of my points. No wasted emotion. No alternate storylines. No, like, with Jason Bateman's character, like there's 20 minutes. Like, why we need to see that? That was not in this movie at all. I really enjoyed this movie. Took my girlfriend, who's not into sports, who knows nothing about Michael Jordan other than what I told her, because around that time we were getting to date in The Last Dance, and that's all she knows is basically that. And she loved this movie. She's like, it's one of the best movies she's ever seen. So I think that she's not a basketball fan at all. So I think that's a huge indicator of how well this movie really stuck to the overall plot. And I think even though most people know the outcome of this movie, and you see the Air Jordan brand and Jordan, I think it was very compelling whether or not how it's going to happen. I think at least for me, I can speak for myself, I was very compelled as what's going to happen here. Like, he's going to sign? Is he going to go to another shoe company first? Like, how are they going to play it? I mean, I heard Ben Affleck say himself he was going to take creative liberties in terms of this movie just to make it a compelling film. So I just didn't know which way it was going to go. So I thought overall it was executed, like you said, Matt, with really no filler, and it's a great film overall.
Yeah, they did a good job making building that tension towards the end of the movie, and letting you know that there were going to be some real consequences for the people involved around this. I mean, the entire basketball department of Nike at a certain point. Um, and I think the next thing, that I thought was really effective that you mentioned earlier is that even though Michael Jordan is sort of the source material, and now we have several instances of proof when MJ is kind of your source material, you're probably not going to fail on whatever project it is you're doing. People are hungry for Michael Jordan content. So just keep it coming, you guys. But I think also, you mentioned it earlier, him not being in the movie, you not even really getting to see his face. I mean, other than a couple clips of his play that they used in the movie, I think was actually really effective. I think if he were in the movie, or an actor portraying him, I think all the focus would have gone to, like, how did that actor do portraying Michael Jordan? And you would have had this distraction that wasn't really the main point of the story, to be honest. I mean, he's the influential piece. He's the guy that's going to become who many consider the GOAT, but really it's about these people around constructing this pitch for him, etc., and that competition to sign him. So I thought that was very well done by them.
No, I feel you, and that was one of the parts of the movie I was nervous about, to be honest, watching the
Yeah.
trailer. I was like, "They're not showing his face. That seems weird." But I think you're right on the money, Matt, because he's such a huge figure in sports, and he's so larger than life compared to the figures that we see now, just in sports in general. He is like a quote unquote deity figure, and I don't think it's generational. I think Ben Affleck said he was really nervous about meeting, Jordan, and that's his kind of contemporary in age. I mean, it's not like he's super younger. I imagine they're the same age or similar, or not that far off. So I think it's not only our generation, but just other older generations, which is surprising to have this reverence for Jordan. I think a younger actor, you're right, portraying him, you're right. You're exactly right on the money. Your eye gets drawn to him. It's a thing of like, how is this actor doing portraying Jordan? And I think the rest of the plot and the point of this movie really gets lost. I agree.
Yeah, and the next thing that was more of a surprise to me, I was kind of thinking this movie, watching the trailer, there's some funny moments in there. And I was kind of thinking going into the movie, like, this is going to be one of those things where we saw all the funny parts in the trailer. The rest of the movie around it will be more serious. Not the case. A lot of humor to break the tension from some of these scenes. A lot of humor from Phil Knight, and how he is portrayed. That was, I think kind of easy, kind of a cheap device, so to speak, sort of punching up, for that comedy, but it was done effectively.
No, I feel you. I feel like the humor was genuine. It wasn't
Yeah,
like, here's the scene where it's like, ha ha, we're trying to get the laugh. The scene I'm thinking of is Matt Damon and Chris Tucker, who's Chris Tucker's fantastic in this movie.
yeah,
He's really good. I hope from this movie he gets used more. I don't know what his deal is. I heard they're making a new Rush Hour, but separate from that, I think he's a really great actor, and his humor was used to push the plot of the movie. And I felt like it was a genuine conversation between you're transported into a natural conversation between these employees, as opposed to just Chris Tucker. I mean, a little bit of Chris Tucker in there is Chris Tucker, but overall, it has felt like, hey, this is a natural conversation that could take place. Like, these two guys really care about each other. Saw Chris Tucker really believe, in Matt Damon's character. Matt Damon playing Sonny Valaro, Chris Tucker playing Howard White. And there was some pictures, when the movie was over, of Howard White and Jordan together. So that was a relationship that was really important to Michael. And just seeing those two really brainstorm, and really it was kind of those two against the world, I think was really, really important. Or really, I think introduced, like you were saying, Matt, a lot of people that don't know this story, made it easier to digest compared to just getting into a lot of like, sneaker minutia or, in the weeds basketball. I think it made it really easy for just the common viewer to understand.
Yeah, let's talk about some more of these acting performances too. You mentioned Chris Tucker there, who I agree was great in this. Um, One thing I wanted to mention, I think, Jason Bateman, his character, and honestly, I'm so on Jason Bateman as an actor. He's been in some stuff that I like.
Agreed.
He's been in some stuff that I don't. He's just someone I don't really feel like I click with or understand sometimes as an actor. But in this movie, he has a monologue in here, and I won't totally give it away, but he talks about his connection with Nike and also does, I feel, an effective job at kind of highlighting this knowledge that we all have that this is a big corporation that does some shady things. Even at that time, back in the 80s, he's able to effectively touch on that where it doesn't feel like an overt political statement. It doesn't get you out of the plot of the movie. I thought that was done very well. And I kind of saw him as being sort of like a mirror for us, the audience, and able to describe like our relationship too with Nike and other big corporations. I thought that was done very well, and his character was useful in showing the personal side and the consequences of what was going on, and added to what you mentioned earlier, this tension building throughout the movie, and making us personally invested in it. So I will say, I mean, great performance by him.
I thought he was great. I was a little bit worried because, like, I think I like Bateman a little bit more, but I have the same concerns. And I thought when he was first cast, I'm like, I don't know about this casting. And Chris Tucker, too. I felt the same way. And at the first scene, when they are profiling players, I think you could see, like, the Jason Bateman come out the most. But
Oh, yeah,
afterwards,
good
I
point.
think he really adjusted into his character overall. And I think you really saw a serious performance from Jason Bateman, and I co-sign everything that you said. He was a really pivotal piece to this movie,
Yeah,
as well.
I did not
Um,
expect that, and that was
yeah,
a
me
nice
either.
surprise.
Another actor I want to point to is Viola Davis.
Yeah,
She is the anchor. I think just having the wrong actress portrayed in this role would have been very detrimental to this movie. And Viola Davis killed it. She was the anchor. She was the voice of Michael. She provided a lot of context as to what the players should want and their leverage. And her face in that final scene, again, spoilers, just warning you, that final scene is critical because you could see it in her face trying to get what Michael wants. She wasn't sure. It wasn't like, oh, it's locked. Like this guy's gonna be, I think she believed in her son, but wasn't sure about his leverage as a brand overall. She was nervous about that.
hmm,
And I think she did a good job of, being confident in her son, but also being uneasy about getting what Michael ultimately got in that shoe deal. So I thought she was fantastic in this movie as well.
yeah, 100% agree. Great performance throughout. Once she's introduced, um, gives the script gives her a good opportunity to make a personal connection with like Michael Jordan's family and what this means to him. I mean, she mentions like generations of Jordans, and I do question, how much really she was like the focal point of that deal as they portrayed it in the movie. Like on the other side of this is they really didn't give dad a whole lot to do. um, but that's more something that I would need to honestly have more research on. And the fact that Jordan co-signed it, I assume it's not. He didn't take it as a crazy exaggeration of the importance of her role in his life in this moment in time and beyond.
So you brought that up, Matt. So can we talk about this?
Yeah.
So a great because you bring up an excellent point, and this is something that I struggled with this movie because, like you, I'm not super familiar with the minutia of the details of this deal being completed between Jordan and Nike. And I feel with other autobiographical movies, Bohemian Rhapsody, and then Fighting for Your Family, which I am familiar with because I am a pro wrestling fan. I knew the complete history of that story, and
Mm.
the actual facts in the movie are wrong. Like I
Mm.
literally saw
Mhm.
this happen, like with my own two eyes, and from just all these minor things to a lot of big things, but the movie was good. Like I still like the movie a lot. I think it's a great, heartwarming story, but the facts are incorrect.
Mm.
So what is that juxtaposition overall for like a person that knows everything about this deal? And if there's creative liberties taking place, is that a penalty to the movie?
It's all in the context of the individual projects and how far did they reach? So what you're describing sounds like it was probably more of a reach than this film was in terms of that role. I mean, I don't know that Michael Jordan's mother was like on the phone, telling the agents what to do, telling Nike what to do. I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure she was important in the deal because Michael Jordan was tight with both his parents. Um, so I don't know. For me personally, I don't penalize this movie at all, even if that is an exaggeration on that part. It felt like it was still grounded in reality to me, even with Viola Davis having these major parts. It wasn't something where I sat there and said like, ah, come on. It wasn't to that level that I was taken out of the movie.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Just a couple of other things, and I want to ask you a question. One, I thought the portrayal of how irrelevant basketball shoes were was really great in this movie because
Yeah.
even with the other shoe companies, it seemed like, yeah, if basketball stars wearing our shoes, so what? And now, it's funny in the one scene where Jordan is in, I think, the Converse, and like the guy said it himself. He's like, you're going to be like the fourth guy. Like we already have Julius Irving, Magic, and Bird. Like you're number four. But that's still great. And it's
Yeah.
just like different how the portrayal is now, where it's like you're an entity. Like you would never
Yeah.
tell Lamelo Ball like you're number five, like you're
Yeah.
Lamelo Ball, like or Damian Lillard or Steph Curry, like wherever, whatever or Victor Wembanyama or Zion Williamson. We never say, well, you're second behind LeBron, like the kid used to.
Yep.
I know you're Zion, like we're selling your shoe, or Kyrie Irving. Like you would never tell them that. So I just thought it was very interesting how they didn't really care about basketball shoes and like the culture there, and Adidas, just like how cool Adidas was. I thought that was really cool, like with Chris Tucker, he was saying, hey, I got an Adidas sweatsuit, don't tell anybody, like I wear it on
Yeah.
the weekend. Like just the shoes, those were cool back then in the 80s with Run DMC. So I just thought I liked that minutia, and I like and my girlfriend pointed this out, the 80s, like
Yeah.
just the
Yep.
clothing, just the era of the 80s, this the Sports Illustrated covers, just the discussion between Matt Damon. We would go to 7-Eleven with that dude that was the clerk there, just
Yeah.
talking basketball and how he's wrong about Michael Jordan, and he's like changed his mind once Michael like got into the league. He's like, oh yeah, I believed in Michael always. It's just like
Yeah.
I just thought that was really excellent overall. Um, I
Yeah.
want to ask you a question. So where do you put this within sports movies? It doesn't have that much sports
Mm,
in it. Like other than
that's
like,
true.
some VHS clips, there's not technically sports. There's not like, like Rudy or Hoosiers or Blue Chips or any of those other movies. This is very much like business behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So where do you rank it in terms of your sports movie ranking if you thought about it?
Oh man, yeah, I haven't thought that much in depth about where I would put this, but a comparable movie that does have a little bit more sports action would be Moneyball.
That's
That
right.
that
Great
talks
movie.
about like behind the scenes, and yeah, I,
Good
I
point.
love that book. I love
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think in terms of entertainment value, this movie is a little bit more entertaining. Some of that too is because of the nostalgia and the love for basketball that I have. But this movie would rank high for me. The other thing too is I do think this movie is rewatchable. I do think I will end up purchasing it and watching it again. So
Me too.
um, I would rank this pretty high. I don't know if it competes with things that have sports action like Remember the Titans. Like
That's
for
right.
me, Glory Road is a movie that I love. So maybe below those, but I'd want to watch Moneyball again and see if I put it above
Makes
or
sense.
below that. But
Makes sense.
definitely, it's on my list of great sports movies, no doubt.
Yeah, I feel you. When you see like a Rudy or like you're saying a Glory Road, it's just like that's the emotional heartstrings. You can't get that with sports business.
So, do you want to give overall ratings?
For sure. I guess ratings at a 9 out of 10. I give it like a 9.5. It was really entertaining, short and sweet, really compelling, no filler, great acting performances. But I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave it 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
I just wasn't adding any decimal points. I probably could give it a few more points too. I I love this movie. It was awesome to go see this in theaters.
agreed.
Highly recommend you guys check it out as well while it's in theaters. Get that 80s nostalgia in, if nothing
Yeah,
else, and enjoy this great film.
agreed. Agreed. So for Matt Thomas, I am Justin Goodrum. I hope you enjoyed this movie review, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.